Welcome to a webinar, a lunch and learn, a time with us to engage with you guys at MortarStone. And so excited to be here. As we get started though, I'm going to ask everybody as you join in, go ahead and put into the chat your name, where you're at, and if you want to, your email information. So do that. Looking forward to our conversation today. And as we get going, let me just talk a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. So one of the things that we believe at MortarStone is it's most churches know who their top givers are. But the question is how are you discipling the people who could be your top givers? And so as we walk through the conversation today, we really want to talk a little bit about that and show you in very practical ways how you can find out who some of those people could be, and then some practical steps you could take, next steps to actually discipling them towards their next steps. So today I'm joined by my colleague and good friend, Kent. And Kent, you want to just say something to the crowd so they can see your face?
Sure, it's good to see some familiar names in the chat. Again, if you just got here, please put your name and where you're from and maybe an email address in the chat for everyone to see. But my name's Kent. I've been part of the MortarStone team for 5 years. Prior to that, I was with the Financial Peace University team for 12 years. And then prior to that, I did everything but preach Mary and Barry as part of unintentionally climbing the leadership ladder at a church of 2,000 people outside of Milwaukee. So it's a joy to be presenting today with Dwayne.
Awesome. Thanks, Kent. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been with MortarStone team for coming up on 3 years, actually August 1st. And it's been a great part of the journey. For several years before that, I was an executive pastor at my church. And before that, I had a long career in industry. So as we talk through today, like I said, we're going to dig into this question about who your top givers could be. As we get going here, though, one of the things that's different about today's webinar is we're actually doing this more as a lunch and learn as opposed to a webinar. And so let me just talk a little bit about the distinction. So one of the things that we want to do is today's going to be very practical. A little bit of here's why, but then mostly how to conversation. And so our goal is to do about a 30-minute conversation where we're talking, but then you guys engage in the conversation with us through the chat or whatever else. And so feel free to ask questions as we go, either in the Q&A or in the chat. But really, we want this to be interactive, and it's too big to be workshop style, but workshop style-ish in this conversation. So with that, let me just say we're going to jump right into this conversation and go. So already said, what we want to do is help you guys understand how to identify who your top givers could be. And how many of y'all, and just put in the chat, yes or no who your top 10 givers are in your church?
Yeah, and I'll help clarify here, Dwayne, who your top givers could be. We want everyone to be a giver.
Right.
But today we're really going to focus on who are your top people with your most capacity who probably should be giving the most quantity of dollars. So just so we're clear on that right at the outset.
Yep, that's good, Kent. Thank you. And it looks like there's a bunch of yeses and a couple no's. And what we know is because we have tools in MortarStone that you can go to your top giver tab and identify people there that are your top givers. And so that's pretty straightforward approach to do if that's how you and your church's culture is. We're going to talk through a little bit about giver identification and really awareness and how do you actually take some next steps with them. So
yep. And Dwayne, I'll mention, if you are a MortarStone user at all, you should be logged into your MortarStone account and be clicking along with us as we go.
Thanks, Kent. So what do most of us do? You know, when I talk to churches on a regular basis, most churches know who their top givers are. And they know things to do with them. They engage them, they communicate uniquely to them. Many do, some don't. what I find is a lot of people focus on discipling their top givers to be better givers. And I think the piece that we really want to lean into in our conversation today is that's great, but oftentimes the people who could be your top givers are the people flying under the radar who you have no insight into who they are. Yet they're the people who could grow the most because as they let go of their need for holding on to the dollars or actually releasing and being open-handed with their finances with God. And so that's really how we're going to tackle that. And one of the things that we believe is really what we want to help you identify is who are the people who have capacity, but also have a propensity to give, and which means they're already giving. So people who have already started the journey and they have additional capacity, they just haven't really grown beyond that initial step. And so let me ask this question. So we asked you, do you know who your top givers are in the chat? How many of y'all have figured out who your top givers could be, should be in your church? Go ahead and put yes or no into the chat. Just would love to see.
Yep. And I'll just add here, Dwayne, that the things we talk about today could also be applied to people who are giving very little or giving nothing once you get good at following up with the people that we're going to really focus on today.
Yep, that's awesome. And Ken, I see one yes. Brandon tells us he knows that answer. So Brandon, maybe you can show us a few tricks that you've got as well as we go into this conversation. So, but the thing that we believe is the people who can grow the most are these people who have a capacity to give, but they also have, as Kent said, maybe they're not giving at all, or maybe they are giving a little bit, yet they have never really wrestled with what it means to turn it all over to God. And so, the thing that we want to help each of us start to look at is how do we recognize the people who may have the gift of generosity, but they've never actually been released to express that gift. One of the things I talk to a lot of churches about is the fact of if you saw somebody who seemed to have a really good voice in your church, you probably want to try to figure out how to enhance that voice and use it as part of your worship services. And so we want to help you identify those people who potentially have the gift of generosity. They just haven't started to display it yet. And so part of this also then is the fact of, is it a them issue or is it an us issue? Have we not encouraged them? Have we not challenged them? Have we not helped them take that step? Or is it just the fact that they are where they're at and they're not going to change? And often it could be either or, but often it's as much a us problem where we are not challenging and encouraging people to grow in their generosity as much as them choosing to hold on to what they have.
And I'll insert here that as church leaders, if we are not engaged in this, I can promise you good nonprofits and local colleges in your area are. They are talking to your people. I've heard stories from MortarStone customers about how they started getting into this and realized how far behind the curve they were. And we're going to help you do some very simple things to get started today.
And Ken, I think that's a great point because the things that we're going to talk about today are the things that nonprofits are doing with the people every day. And so, but we've got scripture on our side to help people take those next steps. But it also starts out with us, and 1 Timothy 6 talks about the fact of instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited or set their hope on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly supplies us with all the things to enjoy. Instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous. I don't need to read the rest of it, but I think the key thing that I see in here is the fact of Paul is talking to Timothy, and he's not saying, hey, this is on those people. He's saying it's on us as church leaders, you, Timothy, as a church leader, to actually instruct, to encourage, to do these things, to help them understand how to do that. And so, we'll talk a little bit about some of the practical things that we've seen churches do to instruct and to equip. But it all starts with somebody starting to have a relational journey conversation with them. And so
Dwayne, in the context of this verse and in this
Yep.
presentation, where are we drawing the line for who is rich and who isn't?
Ken, I think that's a great question. If we look at it, I think we all know if we look at it through the lens of a global conversation, there's nobody who is not fitting into this category. If we look at it through the lens of who's rich in the riches of what Jesus gives us, it fits everyone who's a believer. So we haven't really identified where there is a space here. Some of that's going to depend on, if you're out in the Bay Area or if you're in rural Indiana, the differences between what rich looks like probably is going to look different, yet there's similarities that are the same. And so I really think that's up to each church to decide who fits into
Yep.
that category.
Yeah, that's a good call out. If you're listening live or watching the recording, you've got to kind of decide where you want to draw that line in how you apply the things we're going to talk about today.
Yep, yep, very good. Because one of the things that why we believe this matters is because we believe generosity reflects discipleship. So if someone has not released their hold on their finances, on their time, on the stewardship of the things that God's entrusted to them, they've not submitted to God's plan for their life. And so we see that as a stumbling block in their growth. And so we want to help equip you so that you can equip them and disciple them in that. We know that people are enslaved to idols, the things that people buy. Danny Stokes, who's been a part of our team and been a longtime user of MortarStone, always called himself the pastor of financial freedom. And he was working with people who had the most income, but were slaves to what was happening. And he was working with people who were living day to day, who were slaves to their budget and their debt. And I just look at that as a perfect example of we're all slaves to something. We're supposed to be slaves to Christ. So how do we do that? We know that there's security and contentment challenges that are there, which is really tied to the one before that. But then also, yeah, growing your giving and it's not about growing your giving to grow the giving, but it's about how do you better accomplish the mission that God's entrusted to you in your church. And so I think that's a little bit of the why this matters. And so, Kent, I'm going to stop sharing so that you can actually show us some things from within the tool itself.
All right. So again, if you have a MortarStone account, I want to encourage you to be logged in, follow along. If you're watching the recording, there's probably going to be points in time where you're going to want to pause the recording to follow along. So let's jump in here. So again, I am in a demo account. This is all sample fake data, but using the real software. And I want to start out by just giving some context that's really important for you to understand everything else that we're going to talk about. And that is I've clicked on the Community Explorer, which is the mapping tool in MortarStone. This sample data has a church with multiple sites, so I just picked one. And then I turned on the visualization for median income. Because if you don't understand this, the things we're going to talk about subsequent are not going to make sense. So the federal government does a census every 10 years or so, and MortarStone is connected to that census data. That data is organized into something called a census block that is very similar to a zip code to help you understand what a census block is, but usually a census block is a lot smaller than a zip code. So on this map here, you can see some different weird colored shapes on the map. Every one of these different colored shapes is one census block. And then you'll see via the legend on the left that the darker the color, the higher the median income is according to census data in that area. Now I'm going to change my font size
And Kent,
here.
before you jump off of there,
Mhm.
recognize the highest that the Census Bureau goes is $250,000 of income.
Yes.
So the highest you'll ever see on here. So if you're in the Bay Area or someplace else, the highest you're ever going to see is the $250,000. But it's really the 145,000 and up conversation is what that dark blue is,
Yep.
or that purple or whatever. I'm not good with colors, Kent. So whatever that it looks like.
So what I did is I used the control minus on my laptop. If you're on a Mac, it'd be command key minus to change the size of the resolution on my screen so that I could see more of the legend on the left side of the map. Because I want to click this button for core givers. These are bands 2, 3, and 4 in MortarStone, because this is what we're talking about today, is partially your core givers. And you'll notice I had one dot show up in this sample data, and this one dot happens to be a household in the sample data that is in the darkest shaded area. So this is the kind of people we're talking about, and how you can kind of begin to see how MortarStone geolocates any address that it can based on what you're looking at to help you identify where they are on a map, to be able to look it up in the census data, to be able to estimate their income. And we recognize this is an estimate, but we've worked with this quite a bit, and it has turned out to be a really powerful tool. The next place I want to go, now that you've got that understanding, is I'm going to go to Insights, and I'm going to go down to Tithing. And then I'm on the bottom of the tithing page where I've got a report that is tithers by median income. And I'm going to increase my font size here just a little bit to make this a little easier to read. So again, I'm at the bottom of this page, and I want to explain the layout of this report, and then we're going to interact with it a little bit. So this first column of households, MortarStone's looking in your database, and it's trying to geolocate every address that it can. In the sample data church, MortarStone found almost 4,500 households, of which about 1,500 of them, we could not geolocate their address. Hence, they're in the unknown row. But for everybody else, they have been placed in a row that is appropriate for their income for where they live according to census data. Then what MortarStone did is we took this household column as our total, and we broke it down into two other columns of non-givers and givers. So people that gave nothing versus people that gave a penny or more. Hence why in this first row we have 77 households total, of which 74 gave nothing and 3 gave something.
And Ken, just to clarify, the 77 households or the households column, you actually put a filter on to ensure that it's active households in this for this church, correct?
Yes. Again, this is sample data, so
Right.
but yes, you can do that. You can use the master filter at the top of the screen here to change the period of time you're looking at, etc. If you've got multiple campuses, you can dial it in to be one campus. So be aware of what the master filter is set to as you're looking at this.
Yep.
As we continue to the right, the next thing we do is we take the giver column and we break it down into non-tithers and tithers. And the way we do this is really pretty simple. We know how much people have given. For example, these 3 households, we know exactly how much they've given as a household. So we compare that to 10% of the median income. And then we simply categorize them as a non-tither or tither based on 10% of the median income as a gross number. So just know that simple formula here is 10% of gross based on estimated income from census data.
Yep, Kent, which says if they give a lot of money to a nonprofit, we're not going to be able to reflect that in here.
Right.
If their income doesn't fit the median income, it may not be accurate as well. But what we have found, as you said earlier, is there's people in those census blocks that have a higher income, and there's those who have a lower income. But what we found this to be a pretty accurate reflection of what the reality is for people's household income.
Yep. So for the focus of our topic today, we are focusing on this non-tither column. And we're focusing on wherever you want to draw the line for where you consider people to be rich. For many people, you could consider that to be 6 figures or higher. But it's up to you to decide. And then if you have permission in MortarStone, you'll see these quantities are in blue. I could click on any of these numbers and actually see a list of names which then you should work through to see. You're going to know a lot of these people. What do you know about them? Does this estimated income make sense, etc.? But let me show you something that can make this report 10 times more interesting. So I'm going to go up to the master filter at the top of the page, and I'm going to go down to tags. And again, this is sample data, but I have a tag in here that's called constituent. I'm going to consider that to be like a member tag. So these are people that have attended a class. In many cases, they've signed a piece of paper saying that they're going to be committed to this church. They theoretically, as part of their membership agreement, they're going to give to the church. So now I'm looking at the same report. It's the same layout, but I'm only seeing households who have that member status. And the interesting thing that should jump out at you immediately is how many non-givers we have who have taken one or more steps to say that they're committed to your church. That could be a whole nother discussion. But I point this out to say that if you don't have tags in your MortarStone account, you need to contact us and get help to get tags in here. And you can email our support team at the bottom of the left menu, and they will help you. Depending on which ChMS you're using, it could be easy or it could take a little bit of work. So it just depends on your circumstances. But you want to use tags in MortarStone. It is like a superpower in MortarStone. So be sure that you have them, you use them, and that they are mostly accurate in your main system. All right, so let's just assume we're good as far as accuracy. We've got good tags, etc. Now, as I look at my non-tither column, you can see my quantities are much smaller and more manageable. So here I've got 6 households that are making over 200 grand. They're not tithing, but they are giving as a group. This group of 6 happens to be giving about 10 grand. So there's potential that these group of 6 could be giving more to your church. They might be giving more to other organizations, and you need to find out the story behind whatever it is they're doing. You need to engage them. We'll talk about how to engage them more in a minute, but the focus right now is we want you to be able to find this simple list in MortarStone. Hopefully you've got tags that you can use in any way that you choose to narrow down the list to people that have already said they're committed to you. And oh, by the way, they're giving you some money. And this is the thing that I constantly remind people. If somebody's giving you any amount of money to your church, they like you. You should approach them as somebody who likes you. If they don't like you, they're not going to give you money. So
especially not, and you could jump into that, and you might say some that are doing a $10 thing every so often. And I know we've had this conversation before, but I'm a huge believer that I can steer a boat that's in motion a whole lot easier than I can one that's still sitting at the dock. And the people who are giving something is that boat in motion that just needs to have a little bit of help to potentially take a deeper step into the conversation.
Yep. The thing we don't know is in the non-giver column, how many of these people are giving. They're just not giving to your church.
Right. Yep.
All right. So let's move on to the next thing that I want to show you. So again, I'm in the same demo account, but now I've gone down to giver development searches. And I want to point out, and this is true for everybody, there's this button up here at the top where you can create a new search from an example. And when you click on that, you can come down, and one of your examples that you can start with is potential top givers. This one example search is exactly targeted to what we're talking about today. So I've already created it. I'm going to click on it here because I want to review the criteria that it's using with you. So it's starting out with all your households as part of the search. And in this case, all campuses. Again, you can refine that to whatever degree makes sense for you. But then the very first filter that we're using is the median income filter. And I'm going to edit this box here so you can see that you have the opportunity to enter whatever numbers you want here. And this gets back to what we mentioned a moment ago about where you draw the line for who's rich. Just put in that number wherever you want to draw that line. And again, you can rerun this search multiple times and change this number. But go ahead and leave the max blank. Reminded here that it maxes out at 250 for census data anyway. So again,
Yet, yeah, it will still show if they have a $500,000 median income, it will still show a $500,000 median income. But
yeah,
the Census Bureau will, yeah, the range will end there at the
yep.
250.
All right, so I'm going to hit done on that just to save that. So I didn't change anything. I just wanted to show it to you. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So this next filter on total giving is helping us find people out of the 664 that have a higher median income who also then have given a minimum of $500 up to $10,000. So I'm going to be technical here for a moment. The band settings that you have in your MortarStone account, band 5 is your top givers. So wherever you've set that threshold for top givers, that's why we chose 10,000 because top givers defaults in MortarStone to 10,000. So you're probably at 10,000 or higher for your band 5 top givers if you've never changed your thresholds. So that's why we're leaving it that way for this illustration today. Then below that, we've said, hey, let's look back for the last 365 days. And for our funds, we've selected just a few here. Again, this is sample data, so what I've chosen here really doesn't matter, but you can pick whatever you want to pick. If in your MortarStone account you have not created categories yet, you should do that. And if you need help, again, just email our support team and they will help you. So that's the criteria. If you want to add more filters of whatever you want, all you need to do is click add a filter and work through the list and grab the ones that you want. Super easy. So I'm going to run this search. And again, the first filter found 664 households that match this first filter of where we drew the line for who's rich. Then the second filter is grabbing out of the 664, how many of them have given this much money in this range of time to these categories? And it came down to a list of 119. So
And
now
so, Kent, if you went in and did the same constituent tag, you could easily do that, which would mirror this very simply to that. But for the purposes of what, so just as an example of an additional filter you might want to apply, but
yes. So I'm going to illustrate that because it's that important that it's worth taking time to. So here's the tag filter. It opens up and it looks very similar to the master filter. I can just click in the search by name. Here's my list of tags I have available. Constituent is the one that I'm pretending is being membership. And then I can choose any, all, or none. I'm going to go with any for this search and hit done. And we had, what was it, 119 prior to adding this
right.
tag.
Yep.
So let's run it again and see what happens. So look at how that changed. My 119 went down to 8. So again, these are 8 people who match all the criteria above and have taken a step to say, hey, I'm committed to this church.
Yep.
So I'm going to review the results now. And again, this is all fake data. But you can see that the median income for that address where these people are found are these numbers. And then you can see whatever the giving has been for the categories that were chosen up to this point. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying these first 3 rows, well, actually, let me point out, you can click on these headers and it will sort the list. So I'm going to click it twice to get the highest numbers at the top. So any of these that are above 200,000, even if that number is a third wrong, these people have the potential to be giving more than they are.
Yep.
So this is a prime example of who should/could be your top givers who are not currently. Because by definition, within MortarStone, according to your band 5, which is your top givers, they would be needing to give 10,000 or more to be a top giver. And this list of people is kind of screaming at us. It sure seems like these people could be in that list, but they're not today.
Yep. And Kent, the thing that we know is the only way to take the next step in this is to have conversations and engage in that, which we'll go to in a second. The other piece that it'd be good for us to mention, Kent, is the fact of this just addresses rich in the frame of cash flow basis.
Yes.
It does not address the fact of, like, I grew up in rural Indiana, so that's always will be one of my examples. But there's a lot of people who in rural Indiana may not have a lot of cash flow income, yet they have a lot of property and other assets that can be a part of that conversation as well. And so there's multiple ways to look at this dialogue of defining that, and whether or not you're using a tool like what you're showing as far as median home values, or you want to do a giver screening, which we can help you with depending on that. So there's additional pieces that we can help you as a church to identify who to start this journey with.
Yep. Okay, Dwayne, I'm going to stop my screen share and let you bring the slides back up.
Perfect. Thanks, Kent. Appreciate you doing that and leading us through that conversation.
While you're bringing up the slides, I'll address one question that relates to how MortarStone connects to data briefly. So MortarStone has an automated connection to many of the largest players in the church software space as far as keeping track of your people, your planning centers, your rocks, etc. And those things automatically bring in all the data that's needed to do everything that we're illustrating today. If you happen to be using a system that is not on our list of automated connections, then you would need to manually upload data in order to make these things happen.
Yep.
But
And
specifically, Planning Center was mentioned in the chat. Planning Center, we have the most robust connection between Planning Center and MortarStone that we have for anybody. So if you are using Planning Center, you're in a good place.
And Kent, it's not just a one-way integration. We can actually put information back into Planning Center to help you engage with the people directly from there. Yep. So can you see my slides?
I can.
All right. For some reason, I can't see your face anymore, which I don't, and you can tell me whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
You are a blessed man.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but so let's talk a little bit about the next steps, Kent. So, the thing that we know is we can help identify who those next top givers could be. So how do you start those conversations? And, what we would say is consider the following. Whether or not you're going to do a coffee, meet them for coffee, go to dinner with them, invite them to some special events. How do you engage and disciple your people, I think, is still a conversation that is unique to each church. We can talk through some of those unique specifics with you as far as some things that we've seen. But that's one of the pieces that we would say. Things like journeys of generosity. We've seen tremendous results from churches who have done that. Discipleship materials, doing a generosity challenge. Kent, you and I were talking earlier in the week. We see a lot of churches doing generosity challenge, and I saw one church that every year in October they do a generosity challenge. And the interesting thing was when I was looking at their new giver cohort table, October was the month when people started giving and consistently gave from that time forward. And so they matter. But a lot of people get hung up on the fact of, Well, a lot of generosity challenges, people say, well, let's do a 90-day guarantee. If they don't see God's blessing, then they can get a refund. And I'm like, okay, you can do that, or you can just say stop. The person can stop any time along the way, but challenge them to make that step. Um, and then we already talked a little bit about giver screening. Kent, as you look at this list, what are the things that you see or think is key in this conversation?
Well, based on the tither report that we looked at earlier, what I see on average as I'm looking at data with churches every day is that half of their members give nothing. And of the people that are not tithing, there are more than enough people there to fill a year's worth of calendar for coffees and lunches with the right people. And those conversations are discipleship focused conversations. They're not fundraising conversations. We want to know that people are reading their Bible. We want to know they're sharing their faith. We want to know all these things, whatever that list is for your church. It's just that MortarStone makes the giving part of it easy to see.
Yes. Yep. And so, Kent, I know there's a couple questions that came in the chat. Let's talk about those real quick. Someone asked, does it just pull the giving export with name, address, giving amount, and frequency? And Ashton, I would recommend Kent, if we could make sure that we get a contact information for Ashton, I think there would probably be a great conversation to have with Ashton because there's a lot of information we pull from the church management system, and I believe is what
Yeah,
the
if a
question
church is
is
doing
there.
a manual import into MortarStone because we don't have an automatic
Okay.
option, we define for you all the fields that we need to get for MortarStone to work right. That's all included in our instructions.
Yep.
And if you need those instructions as part of deciding to do a free trial, we're happy to do that.
Yep. Okay. And then Susie asked the question about how do we obtain the slides? And later today, tomorrow morning, the recording will be sent out. So watch for that to come in, and we can also provide the slides as well. And John, the question about being in Canada, we do not have the census connection in Canada. If you have any insight into whether or not there would be availability with that, we'd love to have that conversation as well. Um, so, Kent, let's make this easy on the coffees, the dinners, the whatever. What's that look like?
It can be super simple. And to be honest, I don't remember where I got this from at the moment. So if you gave this to me and you're on this webinar or watching the recording, please remind me. But it can be as simple as 3 questions. How's your family? How's your job or how's your work going? And how's your finances? And just let the Spirit lead in those conversations, because ultimately you're looking for areas of pain or discomfort, or areas where people are wanting to say yes to God more, but they're just not there yet. And you want to help people with next steps in every one of these areas. And an alternate in number 3 is not only how is your finances, and generally speaking, but I love the question, tell me more about your giving journey, because that question is very wide open
Yep.
because you don't know what people's giving is outside of your church. People could be giving to other things. They may or may not be faith-oriented things, or they may have given in the past and they have church hurt and they haven't restarted. I mean, the possibilities here are endless, but these simple questions can open people's hearts to start talking about things, especially if you're coming at it from the standpoint of you want them to hear well done from Jesus someday. If that's the heart behind these questions and the conversation, it will go to amazing places. And again, in this time, we've been focusing on people who have already been giving.
Yep.
They already like you. So asking these questions should not be hard. But having talked to lots of church leaders, until you've done it, and until you've done it a few times and had some reps, it can feel stressful.
Yep. And Kent, the thing I would say, and recently, I'm one of the elders at our church, and as part of the journey for someone to becoming a partner at the church, member slash partner, we have a conversation with them about various commitments that we're asking them to make. One of them is giving. And so as I've been doing some of these conversations, I've actually been using question number 3 as a part of that conversation. I gotta say, there's been some incredible stories of how someone encouraged them to start giving, and God has taken off from there. But it all started with somebody asking them a question that started that journey.
Yep. So that third question, whatever variant of it you use, will help you start to uncover why the person you're talking to is not one of your current top givers or band 5 givers. And as you uncover that why, you can start to address things that will help them get to be potentially one of your top givers in the future.
And once again, this is not about us wanting to get more money from them. This is about us wanting them to release everything that they may be holding on to Jesus,
Yep.
and to help them grow to actually become a better disciple of Jesus.
Yep. And in some cases, these people may be giving those kinds of dollars, but maybe it's going to their alma mater or
Yep.
to a local pet shelter. Let's get more money into direct gospel efforts.
Yep. Yep. So, Kent, to that point, I think you've got a double dog dare.
I do. I have a double dog dare for everyone. And that is, we dare you to have at least one conversation like what we just talked about between now and end of day next Thursday, which is August 6th. If you do, and if you tell us about it, we will give you 25 free data appends. It's about $40 value. And I'll share my screen and show you what this is in the software in just a moment. But what it does is it helps you fill in blanks in your database. So if you're missing dates of birth, physical addresses, you're missing email addresses, phone numbers, this is a feature in MortarStone that's relatively new that can help you get this data. So again, all you need to do is just have one. I'm not even asking for that conversation to be a home run. Just go have one conversation with somebody you found using the software. I'm assuming you've got a MortarStone account so that you can do the things we talked about today. Just go have one conversation. I don't care if it's in the halls at church after service. I don't care if you schedule having coffee with somebody. Have the conversation and then send me an email and just give me the basics of how that went and how it affected you. And we will give you 25 free data appends. Now, Dwayne, if I can share my screen for just a moment, I will show
Oh
everybody
man,
in the
you're
software.
stressing this whole conversation out, Kent, but go for it.
I know I'm difficult that way.
Yep.
But I want to show everybody where it is in the software. So on the left menu, as you go down, one of the options is appended data. And if you don't see this in your menu, it's because permission for you to access this has not been turned on, and you need to modify your permissions. When you come here, it's going to explain it. And all you have to do is create a list of who you want to do this with. And then we'll have the 25 free credits in here for you to do that, and away you go.
Awesome. So, Kent, to bring this home, let me share my screen again here. And so the thing that we know is the fact that Jesus had a conversation with the rich young ruler. And he told him, you need to go sell everything. Well, we're not suggesting that that's what the conversation looks like. But the thing that we know is Jesus caused that young man, and we don't know what happened with that young man post that conversation. But what we know is Jesus engaged with that young man on the biggest issue that was stopping him from following Jesus. And I believe that's what God is calling us to do as church leaders as well. And so, with that, one, thank you guys for joining us. We're here for a little bit longer to answer any questions or to go whatever you guys might want to go. But, Kent, thank you for joining and for sharing so much in this conversation. Here's Kent's email address. We'll get these slides and the recording out to everybody. But hopefully this has been, we've chosen to do, we're going to be doing some lunch and learns on a regular basis to make things more practical. Oftentimes we're talking more on a strategy level, but we want to take that strategy and make it, put the wheels in motion on it. And so we're going to be doing a few more lunches and learns. And so if there's some things that you'd love us to consider doing, send an email. Go ahead and send it to Kent or send it to me. And most of y'all will probably have my email address because it's what shows up in your email box once or twice a month. But feel free to send us a note and we'll stick around and answer any questions, or we're finished for today. Thank you.
And while people are thinking about questions they might want to put in the chat, I also want to encourage people, it's okay for you to practice these conversations on elders, deacons, fellow staff members, people in your small group. Don't be, definitely practice if you are hesitant about having these kinds of conversations.
Yep.
So we've got a question here.
Yep, Jordan asked the question, what is the source used to find the appended data, and can it be pushed into PCO? And so, Kent, actually, before we do that, I think as you talked about, most churches have a large amount of people that have unknown ages, unknown email addresses, contact information. And so what we use is readily available public information. There's multiple data services out there that we access. Kent, are you sharing something with us?
Yeah, I'm just going to illustrate
Okay.
an area that would be easy to identify. So I went into Insights, Giving Breakdown by age. And one of my favorite reports is this one of giving by generation. And all the generations are listed and all the quantities of households in each generation. But down near the bottom, right above the totals, is unknown. So we've got 18 households here who
And
we
Kent,
don't
those
know
are
what
the
date of birth.
constituent households, not the full households in that church.
Right. So if somebody on this goes and has one conversation, I'll give them 25 credits. They could go screen these 18 people and potentially get the month and year of their birth so that they wouldn't be unknown anymore in their data, which will help in lots of different ways.
Yep.
And yes, after you've done the appends in MortarStone, the data will be easy to get out of MortarStone so that you can put it back into your original software. And in MortarStone, if you do an appends, and again, these are all just made up information here, but let's say we did an appends on this person and we got a phone number, it would delineate in here with a symbol. I don't remember exactly how it does it right now, but you would be able to see that this data was gotten through the appends until you put it in your main system, and then MortarStone would pick it up from your main system. But yes, we do make it easy to get it out and put it into your main system, because that was a conversation I know I was part of early on related to this. I'm like, guys, we have to make it easy for it to go back into the original system, or this will not be as meaningful. So yes, we've got that base covered.
Yep. Great question, Jordan. Thank you. Any other questions out there? If oh, It will look for, Jordan, it will look for age and address if both are missing. So it will, but it will only provide back which is readily available. And so I've seen situations where typically we get information back on about 98+% of whatever is sent. And the pricing that you've laid out there, Jordan, is roughly in the ballpark.
Yeah, it varies slightly by how many people you want to do at one time. And if, let's say, of the four pieces of data that's trying to find, it finds three of the four, it'll give you the three of the four.
Right. Yep. Awesome. Well, if
But you
there's
do have
nothing
to have
else,
you have to have a paid account or be on a free trial to use that feature. So if you're currently on a free account, you need to contact us to have a chance to use that.
yep. Thanks, Ken. Kent, thank you so much for
Okay.
joining today. And everyone, thank you for joining. And we look forward to hearing from you about taking these next steps. And Kent, I can't wait to hear the stories from the double dog dare
Yeah,
that was here. So,
Dwayne, I just realized we have a couple questions in the Q&A. We were so
oh,
focused
we
on the
do?
regular chat that
Oh,
we need to look at the Q&A. So, uh, one of the questions is, what is the subscription costs, levels, and fees? So MortarStone's pricing is based on the total dollars going through MortarStone in an average year. We have a few simple tiers. So you need to reach out to us and have that conversation because we ultimately want to do a free trial to verify that your data is right and there's no anomalies. Because once in a while, a church will have a huge one-time gift, and we don't price against that. So that's why we want to have a conversation and actually do a free trial. Let's see. Debbie says she has a paid account. Does MortarStone have resources that would help us to understand what we should do differently to ensure we get the appended data? The tool is, if I'm understanding the question correctly, Debbie, the tool is built to take care of your concern. So am I following that right, Dwayne, or how do you interpret that?
Kent, how I interpret that is the fact of is there a way that they can get the data correctly from the actual people themselves? And part of the challenge that we find is like if you're using a payment processor takes as little information as they need to take the payment. And so if that's the only source of data that you have, the likelihood that you're going to have ages or even addresses, they may have an email address, but they may not have a physical address. And so that's some of the challenges based upon how the giving platforms are set up. And unless you do a campaign, I've seen churches do a campaign with their people to, hey, update your information. And that's really, Debbie, about the only way that I've seen that that's been able to be dealt with by the givers themselves. Because unless they choose to go in and put all the additional information in when they process a payment, where the amount of information that's actually going to flow through is going to be very limited.
Yep. Now you can use MortarStone. You can create a search under Giver Development to go find a list of who you're missing specific fields of data on. But that just refines your list of who you would want to contact to see if they would give you that information. And again, if you've got tags and you've got members, for example, where you're missing information, you should not have any fear about reaching out to those people and say, hey, we really need this if we're going to be able to communicate with you well and serve you well.
Yep. Because Ken, as we talk oftentimes, being able to segment your conversation, and we're going to be talking about end of year giving strategies here in another month or two, and knowing ages to be able to talk to your 70+ year olds about how to do giving out of their IRAs versus your 40-year-olds. And so getting that information is a key part of many of the strategies that we talk about.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, it looks like that is all of them, I believe, Kent, at this point in time. So, and we're almost at the top of the hour. So thank you, everybody. It's been great to be here, and we'll do more of these. But like I said earlier, actually, there's more Q&A. No, looks like they're all done. We'll be doing more of these, but let us know if there's something that you'd love us to do a lunch and learn on. We'd love to come back and tackle more of these very practical topics. So thank you.